Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. Now today's first story comes from the Am I the Arsehole Here subreddit. Quick warning, it does contain violence as well. And it says, am I the arsehole for wanting to go nuclear after my sister-in-law kicked out her teenage sons? Hey everyone, my husband 34 and I 36 are in a tough situation with my sister-in-law, Barbara 41. And we need an outside perspective on whether we're overreacting or if our stance is justified. We're leaning towards the latter but are open to thoughts. Thanks in advance. Barbara has 4 boys. L17, O14, R13 and C7. Despite her having a rough history with bad relationships, her kids have always been well behaved. The only constant man in her life has been Reese, 48, her on and off husband who does nothing for her or the kids except work. He blows his money gambling, cheats on her openly and relies on her for everything else. For 7 years she's come to us, venting about him, swearing it's the last time, but always goes back. In 2020, after yet another huge fight, the entire family intervened. We sat her down, told her we were here to help with anything she needed. Lawyers, a safe place for her and the kids, even handling the legal stuff if necessary. She agreed to kick him out, but within 6 months he was back because he couldn't find a place to stay. This grown man has worked a steady job for 20 years, somehow needed help. Since then, things have gotten progressively worse. Barbara decided to stick with marriage counseling, even though the whole family urged her to leave. She's clung to the idea of honoring her marriage despite the toxic environment. As a result, her kids have started to suffer. The eldest, L, started skipping school and smoking heavily. A few months ago, my husband got a 2 a.m. call from L, who said he was suicidal and afraid to act on it. When we got to their house, we learned he has told his stepdad the same thing, and Reese told him, just do it because no one would care. My husband understandably punched him in the face. We took L to the hospital and, after his release, brought him home with us for 3 weeks to help him recover. Eventually, L returned to his mum's house, thinking things had smoothed over, but they quickly fell apart again. Soon enough, the oldest, O, began having issues too. For months, they'd been fighting constantly, and we didn't realize how bad it had gotten until we couldn't get in touch with either of them. Barbara had gone silent. My husband showed up at her house unannounced, something our family often does for fun, only to find out that she had washed her hands of L and O for being disrespectful and kicked them out. She'd even turned off their phones and didn't know where they were staying. We found out they'd been crashing with friends for weeks, trying to stay under the radar because they were embarrassed. We picked them up from school and brought them home with us again. They told us that their mum and stepdad had been bullying them, constantly fighting, and they didn't feel safe going back. Barbara admitted that she put them out, but insisted things weren't as bad as they made it sound. Now, my husband and I want to go full nuclear. Report this to CPS, the police, and anyone who can intervene. But the rest of the family wants to handle it internally. We feel like 2 minors were abandoned and that deserves an extreme response, but the family is now saying we're overreacting and at the end of the day, these are not our children. So are we the arseholes for not wanting to report the situation and not leave it to family discussions? The 2 oldest boys are with us for now, but we're ready to escalate this. And straight after, like in the same post, they updated with a small brief update saying, we called the police, thank you for the support. And yeah, immediately my thoughts were report this absolutely straight away. She washed her hands of a 17 and a 14-year-old. And screw those people who saying that they want to handle it internally when they've done nothing up to this point anyway. They're just quite happy to sit on the sidelines and watch this shit show happen while there's child abuse going on. Hell no, report it. 74 Magic says, escalate it Monday morning. Good grief, what a mess. Not the arsehole. Snarky reply saying, no, don't wait for a business day. This needs to be handled now. A call to CPS and police. You can't kick your kids out of your home. There are still 2 kids in the home. They need to be checked on too. Julia says not the arsehole, you don't handle crimes internally, like how churches and college protect rapists and police precincts protect dirty cops and families protect child abusers. This is child abuse. Reporter. Catmo says 100% abuse, and although the oldest two were the only ones kicked out, we all know that it was only because they pushed back. All 4 of those kids are suffering the same abuse. The oldest two are the only ones who have the ability to stand up against it. This has been going on for far too long while the family stood by and watched. They had a chance to handle this, and yet they did nothing. This isn't about appeasing the family. This is protecting those poor defenseless children and advocating for them all, when they can't do it for themselves. So around 13 days later, OP comes in with an update and says, it's been nearly 2 weeks since I made my original post and it's been a wild ride. I have to be incredibly vague because of the newly opened case, but here's the most important thing. All of our nephews are safe with us. The boys have always had a safe place here and visited often since they were tiny, long before any of this chaos started. So while the transition has been emotionally jarring for them, the move itself was thankfully smooth. Now as for Barbara and Reese, they're facing charges regarding their treatment of the boys. It was worse than we originally thought. Barbara seems remorseful, but my husband is still livid. He believes she's only feeling sorry now that everything's out in the open and consequences are on the table. Whether her remorse is genuine or not, I'm just relieved we took action when we did, because it's terrifying to think how much worse things could have gotten if we hadn't. Family-wise, everything is a mess. The entire family is split over this, and it's not even worth the text to go over the thoughts of those who oppose us. Those who have sided with us, however, have been a tremendous help. Even though there are a lot of family issues and the logistics are complicated, fuck it, we made the right decision. What I can share in more detail is that soon after I posted, Reese showed up at our house, demanding that the boys return home with him. They refused. I told him to leave, but he escalated things, got loud, aggressive, and started cursing at me and the boys. My husband wasn't home at the time. He was out picking up clothes and toiletries for Al and O. I can only assume Reese felt emboldened by my husband's absence because out of nowhere, he sucker punched me right in the mouth. And Reddit, I'm not ashamed to admit, I saw red. I swung back. It wasn't smart, but I did. He wasn't expecting that. I'm nice and really easygoing, but I guess I forgot that. I jumped on him and let's just say he didn't expect the fight. I might not have landed the best hits, but he wasn't prepared for one at all. He scrambled out of there and sped off. I immediately called 911 while the boys called my husband, who thankfully was just around the corner. I'm fine, just ended up with a busted lip that looks worse than it was. Then my husband insisted I go to urgent care. The police met us there, and that's when we reported everything. Reese's assault and the whole situation with the boys. Reese and Barbara were picked up the next day. And in the middle of all this shit, I found out I'm pregnant. Yep, while I was at urgent care, they ran a routine test and boom, positive. Had no idea. No symptoms or anything, but it's still super early. All things aside, thank you for all your comments, advice and ideas. Your support made a difference and my nephews are safe. The top comment on this one said, anyone else think of the woman who took a hammer to a guy's window when he threw hot coffee on her in the fast food drive-thru, and her interview where she said women are allowed to have responses other than crying. Bravo to this woman taking a stance for her nephews and most importantly herself. It's disgusting there are people like Reese who will attack people who they think won't defend themselves. Seeb says, not a symptom. I bet those pregnancy hormones are part of the reason you fought back. Good for you. Profession Sanity says, yep, that's what I was thinking. Mama Bear was activated. First, congratulations on your pregnancy, by the way, and of course I'm extremely sorry that you're going through all of this to begin with. And I'm also incredibly glad, and I'm not sure if that's the right words to say in this situation, but I'm glad that a person like you is the one dealing with it because, you know, some of your family is willing to sit by while this was going on, where you took a stand for these children. You helped them out of it. You and your husband, of course, absolute champs. But all I can say is I wish you all the best going forward, you and the children as well, and your pregnancy, of course. But I'm going to certainly keep an eye out for an update on that one. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And let's move on to another story. Now, our next story comes from For the Good Times from the Am I the Arsehole Here subreddit. And warnings on this one, it contains mentions of a miscarriage, violence, and it also has a warning of possible sexual assault as well. And it's titled, Am I the Arsehole for telling my sister I won't be her surrogate? Excuse my errors in etiquette. I'm not frequent to Reddit. My friend suggested I use a throwaway account to make this post, so please be gentle with me as much as strangers on the internet can be. I, Celeste, 30 female, have an identical twin sister. I call her Stacy for the sake of the story. Our mother unfortunately passed in child labor and we were raised by our father. Stacy has been married to Jeff for 8 years and I've been in a relationship with Mike for 3 years now. One thing I've always known about my sister is that she wanted to be a mum. Even when we were children, she was always thinking about wedding ideas, nursery themes, baby names, etc. I was always more focused on books and having fun. I'm now a flight attendant. I'm also attempting to become a published author. My sister has not worked, ever honestly. When we graduated high school, we went straight to college. She met her boyfriend in college and once she graduated became a stay-at-home girlfriend until she became his wife. I've known for a while that my sister has been attempting to become pregnant, unsuccessfully. She has experienced a single miscarriage and has been unable to become pregnant again after thousands and thousands of dollars spent on IVF and pretty much anything they could do because she wanted to experience pregnancy. After 5 years of no success, they have started to discuss other options. My sister isn't interested in adoption and is very adamant on having a child that has both her DNA. Her words, not mine. About 3 weeks ago, she came to my house and we're hanging out as we usually do, just chatting and watching Modern Family. She told me she has a serious question and needed to ask me while she still had her nerves. It scared me, but she asked if I could be her surrogate. I was frozen for a second and asked what she meant. She told me that I know what a surrogate was. She needed me to be her surrogate. I expressed that she knew I wasn't interested in having children. This could definitely be due to how we came into the world, but I'll be honest and say I have never found the thought of having children appealing in any way. I told her I would have zero issue with donating my eggs to her. However many she needed, she could have them all, but I could not carry her child. Upon hearing that, she became so angry. Her face was so red, she was just yelling about how it's obvious how jealous and hateful I am because this is a small task. I didn't want to bring it to her attention that she's always spoke about having more than 4 kids. Would the expectation be for me to do this every time? I don't know. I'm starting to feel so bad. She ended up telling me that if I couldn't do this one thing for her, how could I ever call myself her sister? She broke a picture of us I have sitting on my mantle and stormed out. Since then, she's only texted me pictures of her diaries from when we were kids, and all of their vision boards saying that I'm stopping her from creating a family for no reason, and to think about the bigger picture. My boyfriend refuses to give me advice, saying that it's my sister and he doesn't feel comfortable attempting to sway me in either direction, because it's such a touchy subject. Honestly, this is the longest I've ever gone without communicating with my sister, and I'm seriously on the verge of giving in. Am I the arsehole for not wanting to be a surrogate for my identical twin sister? Edit. I'm reading all the comments and I want to say thank you so much. I feel so much better knowing I'm not the villain, but I would be lying if I said I am not leaning towards just doing it. This disconnect with my sister brings immense discomfort in ways I cannot verbally express, but I see 2 frequent questions I want to answer to hopefully get different answers. Money. My mother did not die of natural causes. It was provider error. My father sued the hospital and my sister and I have sizable trust with that money. So money is not an issue for either of us, and her husband is financially well off as well. So not working for 9 months or paying for the egg retrieval process etc. isn't an issue in any way. It's more so her stubbornness for the baby to share our DNA and for one of us to be carrying it. Since we're identical, if she can't have a baby, how can I? A lack of being able to have a child is due to a car accident we were in, which is also the source of the miscarriage she experienced. Due to her being in the front seat with our father, they took the brunt of the crash unfortunately. The body is now unable to carry a child and she has had extreme complications with egg retrieval. I'm not sure about the details of how that has gone wrong, just that it's not working and not an option. It is hard to get her to discuss non-viable options so I can gain a better understanding. Doctors will not allow me to be a surrogate due to me not having a child. Thank you so much for this information. We have a family dinner this upcoming Thursday because we always watch football with our dads and significant others. I'm sure this topic will come up if she decides to attend. I'm hoping I can bring this up to her. And look, I don't want to play down what the sister's going through with her thought process and all this kind of thing. She must be in a bad mental space, coming to terms with not being able to have children. But the level of manipulation towards OP in this, making them feel so bad that they're going to go through with this. This isn't a small thing. This is huge. And the fact that she got angry at you for when you said no the first time, it's just wrong. She should have backed off immediately right then. And to say it's a small task is just like, it's mind-blowing, to be quite honest. 9 months and, the changes in your body and the way pregnancy can go all sorts of different directions, the thoughts, the feelings, the hormones, everything involved. It's huge. But DuckDuckGoo says most doctors would refuse to allow you to be a surrogate if you've not previously had children. She'd be hard-pressed to find one that would. Not to mention she's asking her sister to sacrifice her body and potentially her life to fulfill her dream. That's not fair at all. If she can afford IVF, she can afford a surrogate, not the arsehole. Sir HP says, I'd also add that her losing her temper in this way screams she's not stable enough to enter this sort of relationship with, not the arsehole. Delta Diva says she did it to manipulate her sister. If she has a kid, she manipulates its whole life to match her vision boards. Seductive Norma says, not the arsehole. You are not the arsehole for refusing to be a surrogate for your sister. It's your body and you have the right to decide what to do with it. Your sister's reaction is unreasonable and manipulative, and you shouldn't feel pressured into doing something you're not comfortable with. So, OP comes in with their update and says, so I promised an update tomorrow, but my dad actually ended up calling me while I was hanging out and told me to come over for dinner yesterday night so we could talk. I want to start by saying thank you all so much for all the comments and advice. Some of you were jerks to not only me, but my sister and boyfriend as well. I still appreciate the help. I didn't even ask about when my dad called. I figured he had spoken to Stacy. Based on comments, I know you guys won't be happy, but I spoke with my boyfriend about where his head was if I were to go forward with it. He told me that he loved me and would support me through any and everything, but he would not continue to sit by while my sister made me feel like trash, and if I was doing this under coercion, he would not be able to support me, which I honestly completely understand. When we went over to my dad's for dinner, my sister and brother-in-law were already there. I spoke to them both when we walked in, but only my sister replied. My brother-in-law gave me the most disgusting look and greeted my boyfriend only. My dad sat us down at the table and there was just this awkward silence and tension I could cut with a butcher knife. He said, somebody talk. We need to get this resolved before the game tomorrow night. My dad loves football, lol. I started off the conversation by telling her that I did some research and on top of my initial concerns, I now had a few more and needed to know exactly what she needed from me. I first asked her what being a surrogate would look like. She said, are you agreeing to it? When I told her no, I just needed more details, she broke down crying. I asked her if she knew that a doctor would deny me from being a surrogate given that I've never successfully carried a child to term. And she said she knew that and she would just send my brother-in-law and I to a center of excellence. We can pretend we're a couple and once I'm successfully inseminated, then I will request a transfer from that provider to her Obgyn with a continuation of care. My father intervened and said that asking me to do something a doctor wouldn't sign off on was a terrible way to attempt to begin motherhood. You could tell he wasn't on board with any of it, but didn't want to pick a side. He asked her why she was so uncomfortable with the idea of a surrogate, and that's when my brother-in-law interjected and said, don't try to berate my wife with these stupid questions. Talk to your selfish bitch of a daughter about why she can't help her sister. That immediately shifted the mood. My boyfriend started to yell at him for calling me a bitch. My dad told him he could not disrespect his daughters in his home. Everything just went up in flames. My sister was crying, asking me to do her this favor, practically begging. I told her that if I could trade places with her, I would, but I was scared and just didn't want to die. I think that was the first time I had said that out loud ever. We couldn't get more solved after that. My dad asked my brother-in-law to leave because he couldn't control himself and refused to apologize. When he was walking out, my sister told him she would meet him in the car. Asked me to come and talk to her on the porch, just the two of us. I went out with her and she apologized for her husband calling me a bitch. Said that they were just on edge and it's been stressful. I told her that she shouldn't apologize for him and that would figure something out. She asked me to reconsider and just kept saying, "You don't get it, you don't understand." When I pressured her for more, she admitted that her in-laws made a cruel joke at one of their dinners recently about how she was a murderer, referring to the child she lost. She said she had asked him why he didn't stand up for her when they made the joke, and he said because it's true. He made some weird comments about her not being able to make up for it, and how he was so excited to see what their child would look like, and how he'd never be able to look into a child and see pieces of both of them. So she had the idea of me carrying the child, and he was super on board. But the way she said it was like he planted a seed, and she seems to believe it was her idea. She said she hadn't seen him that excited since the baby, and she just needed my help to get everything back to normal. I tried to explain to her nothing would ever be normal again, and that what she was trying to do was the wrong thing. But he just started blaring the horn and rushing her to the car and said she'd call me later. I feel like I may lose my sister, but I now am not even willing to donate my eggs for her to have the baby with him. I took your guys' advice and looked up the egg donation process, and wow, not at all what I expected. I want her to divorce him. I'm never going to help her procreate with that man. I genuinely think I'd be a surrogate for her to be a single mum before I'd ever allow her to place his child in me, or take my eggs to even create a child with him. I had no clue that his family was pushing so much guilt onto her. I've literally been jumping at my phone every time it rings because I know she'd be calling soon, and I have to tell her that I'm terrified I'll lose my sister, but I can't and won't do this. Probably won't update anymore, but thanks for all your help. I'll probably create my own Reddit now because I'm kind of obsessed with this site. Timmy Reg says, "What a manipulative bastard he is. Your sister should divorce and stay away from her in-laws. No wonder that man is that way. He needs therapy, ASAP." Owen says, "OP showing some healthy backbone," about which there was some doubt in the first post. Assuming this is real, it's a super stressful situation, but she appears to be rising to the occasion. Arsehole seemed like an inadequate word to describe her sister's husband and his family. Hello Junebug says, "Wow, can't believe her own husband called her a murderer for having a miscarriage. Hope she wakes up from the brainwashing." OP comes in with another update and says, "I know I said I wouldn't update anymore, but so much has happened and I can't explain the weird relief I feel typing my madness onto this website. My friend did say that I could just have this Reddit page, or account I assume, which relieves so much stress because Lord knows I wouldn't have made one if I had to do it myself. I had to watch a YouTube on how to properly use this site and what some of the things mean because people kept on commenting that I was karma farming. That's neither here nor there. On to the update. A lot of you suggested that I be more careful around my brother-in-law for fear that he would become violent. I did not listen and I kick myself now for not doing so. I thought I knew my family well enough and this was just a bump in the road. How extremely naive of me. My sister called me back the next morning, the day after he called me a bitch. Unfortunately missed the call because I was in the shower. When I called back, no answer. It was a normal day until we got to my father's house that night for football. Kickoff had just happened when my sister walked in. She asked my dad if he could come outside and talk to her husband. My dad said no because the game was on and he could either wait until the commercial break or he could come in and apologize like a man in front of everyone who witnessed him disrespect me. She took a breath and told him how he wasn't being completely fair. She tried to bring up the previous situation, drawing likeliness, and it infuriated my father. He told her how he didn't raise her to make herself small and weak for a man, and said whatever he did that made her think this is how you have a healthy relationship, he was sorry for failing her as a father. Her eyes started to water and she just stormed out without another word. When I went out to my car after the game was over, I had 2 flat tires and a broken passenger front window. My dad put 2 donuts on the car and used his truck to tow the car into his garage and told me to take his other vehicle and he would get the car fixed and I could come and get it whenever I wanted. Whenever I had time, but not to worry. He asked if I wanted to stay the night. I declined. I called my sister. She didn't answer, so I texted her and said a lot. But for the sake of some of it saying it was, but for the sake of some of it said, but for the sake of some of it staying private, it was just I can't believe this is where we are. Loving a man should never call for destroying your family in the process. She responded by saying, "That's the problem. My family is already destroyed and you aren't willing to help me put it together." I again tried to call her after that. No answer. On the drive home, I noticed a car following me. When I was able to get a better view, I realized it was my sister's mother-in-law's car. I know this only because she has a very distinct car decal that I had literally never seen anywhere else. I freaked out and called my boyfriend, asking him to meet me back at my place. When I pulled up at my home into the driveway, the car pulled in behind me. Luckily, my boyfriend was turning down the street. By the time my brother-in-law got out of his mum's car and tried to walk to me, my boyfriend was running out of his car yelling at him. Jeremiah immediately started yelling, I just wanted to apologize. Him and my boyfriend got into a small scuffle before he got into his mum's car and sped off. He did hit my boyfriend's car in the process. It didn't appear to be intentional and his car is still drivable. After this, I obviously didn't feel too comfortable at my home anymore. I packed a bag and went to my boyfriend's house and haven't really been back home since. My dad did add a camera and floodlight to the back door and driveway. But I'm honestly not too sure I want to go back, although I know I will have to at some point. Yes, I reached out to my sister. No, she did not answer or respond at all that night or the day following. After that, I would notice that on one day, a red car would be following me, the next a black one. I know you may say I was scared and just thinking people were following me, but I would notice them, begin to drive to the police station per instruction from my dad, just for them to then turn once the station was in sight. On Sunday, I went to brunch with a few friends to celebrate one's upcoming wedding and discuss bridal shower details. The waiter came to me and told me my husband was up front and it was an emergency, thinking it was my boyfriend and she was just mistaken. I go up to find my brother-in-law. I approached him in an attempt to not make a scene, speaking low, asking him to leave or I'd call my dad. He told me that everything just went too far and he just wanted to apologize. We were kind of in the doorway and it was just awkward, people funneling in saying excuse me, so I suggested we step out of the way. When we went outside, he apologized for calling me a bitch and said he didn't feel that way. He told me I didn't understand how hard it was for him, and I cut him off there saying that how hard it was for him didn't matter to me because his behavior was becoming too chaotic and abusive to not only my sister but everyone else. He told me that he understood how I could feel like that but asked me to again reconsider. He reached for my stomach and I instantly stepped back and told him he needed to leave and we could set up a time to talk with my dad, but him stalking me was an issue and we could talk later or I would call the police. He grabbed a fistful of my hair as I was walking back into the restaurant, saying, "Don't you fucking walk away from me." Honestly, I don't remember much after that. Everything just went really quickly and a few bystanders got involved. He ended up fleeing before the cops could come. A report was filed. 2 days ago, he tried to come up to my airport terminal, telling them he was my husband and there was an emergency. Same BS he pulled at the restaurant. He was arrested after refusing to leave. He was of course bailed out and has since taken to messaging me the most vile messages. My sister did leave after the show he put up my job. She's currently staying with our dad but has been asking me to drop charges, making excuses for him and has been very adamant that he didn't hit me at the restaurant despite my literal scalp bleeding because of how hard he yanked my hair. And the small scratches I have on my neck and arms from him continuing to escalate aggressively when strangers tried to help. Some of the texts are him telling me the vile thing he's going to do to me, how he'd get me pregnant and I'll be stuck with him for the rest of my life. How he knows that I'm the woman who's going to bring him a son, and if I don't make it easy for him, we'll both die before he gives up. Just really concerning. I blocked his number, so all of these are coming from random Text Now apps. Told the police and they said there's no way to prove it's actually him, so until he acts on it, nothing can be done. Oh, dearie me, I am literally scared all the time. My boyfriend drives me to work and on top of the regular precautions, I take more and I can barely sleep now. I send my sister a screenshot every time her husband messages me and she has taken to no longer interacting. My dad has asked me to stop doing this because it's beating her down, but I told him that I can't even believe she defended him during some of this and she needs to see the harassment that her husband is committing. I feel defeated. I don't even know if me and my sister can come back from this. I feel like I've basically taken over my boyfriend's life and I feel terrible about it. He hasn't said anything, but his regular gym visits are cut sometimes if he has to pick me up or drop me off when I go to work or go anywhere else because I'm scared. Being gone for a day due to flights. I know allows him to do more of his routine, but now we're basically forced to live together, which I enjoy, but I'm not sure that he does. We got into an argument the other day about the AC temperature. I feel like my life is slowly devolving into madness, and I can't breathe. Actual Apartment says I would unblock him and silence his number so you don't get notifications. That way the police would know he's the one sending messages if he uses his number again. And for your sister, your relationship will never be the same again. Even if you find your way back to each other, it will still be different. And even though your father is helping you, if he says something again about you messaging your sister what a husband is writing to you, make him remember that your brother-in-law actually threatened to rape you and your sister is still with him. A potential rapist. Capo K says, I wouldn't even say potential. This is a future rapist. He's completely unhinged. You're so right. Opie should unblock and mute his number. I wonder if a lawyer would consult with her actions so she can take to make a proper legal paper trail. Cops will still not likely intervene until he causes physical harm, even with threats. I agree with absolutely everything you said, quite literally took the words out of my mouth. Jazz says your brother-in-law is stalking you and his delusion is that you will have his baby. Let that sink in, because it's time for no contact. I don't know for how long, but long as it takes. Your brother-in-law is violent, abusive, and delusional. Your sister is beaten down because her husband wants her sister to have his baby and is stalking her like an episode of You. Can't reason with violent and delusional. And that was OP's last post on the matter so far. Absolutely terrifying. And I know laws vary from country to country, but it just again shows that laws on stalking and other things that we're seeing in this story, the laws are just not where they need to be right now in regards to this stuff. That guy, clearly with his behavior, the way it's escalating, is a danger. He is a danger. There's no way about that whatsoever. What he's already done so far, he's pulled OP's hair. The threats he made, terrifying. That in itself should be enough right there and then. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories. Your love, your support, your time always means the absolute world to me. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.